What's going on, guys? Welcome to Victims and Villains. If you guys are new to our content, we create content like what you're watching right now that is mental health through pop culture. My name is Captain Nostalgia. I'm a writer, podcaster, and the director of our film festival, Horrific Hope. First film festival of its kind to be horror-centric and mental health focused. We would like to thank our sponsors for that film festival so far with Convicted Printing, Diabolical DVD, and Fierce Literature, all of which you guys can find links for in the descriptions below. If you guys would like more links to our podcasts, movie reviews like this, Patreon, how to support us financially, a little bit more about who we are, and more, click below. All of those links are going to be in the show notes below as well. Now, this is a channel that specifically talks about mental health, so I will actually, before we start talking about this movie, I will throw a trigger warning that there are a few scenes in this movie that actually do depict suicide, and I'm really conflicted coming into this movie talking about this, especially for this channel, because of A, having lost a friend to suicide, and B, also at the same time, really enjoying this movie. So with that in mind, let's talk about The Menu. So The Menu tells the story of Nicolas Hoult and Anya Taylor-Joy, who buy really expensive tickets for this luxurious theatrical meal deal that's kind of in the middle of nowhere that essentially goes wrong once Ralph Fiennes walks his way into the picture. Right off the bat, this is such an ensemble cast that it's like it's unbelievable, like the talent that they kind of put into this movie. When I say ensemble, I'm not specifically talking about like a Knives Out type of ensemble where you have A-list stars like Don Johnson and Jamie Lee Curtis and Toni Collette. No, this is a movie that is kind of is in a collection of actors that have played very specific parts in their career and play them really effectively, which in turn makes this movie very effective. Just a couple of examples, if you guys have seen John Leguizamo in some of his more classic, iconic roles of kind of playing the lovable D-bag, then he plays it really well in this one. Chau, who played Lady True in HBO's Watchmen series a few years ago, she plays a very eerily similar role in this film, and she plays Ralph Fiennes' right-hand woman, and she plays it really well. Like, she's a very minor character in this movie, but she's so freaking eerie, and I really loved her in this movie. But much like the marketing campaign for this movie would like you to believe, Anya Taylor-Joy and Ralph Fiennes are the true stars and true stand-up performances in this movie. When I make a statement like that, I don't want to like nullify any other performances in this movie. This movie, when it comes to performance, is not lacking in any department. Every actor is essentially equipped, and it goes above and beyond, no matter how big or small the role is. And that's kind of where the blessing of this movie lies, but it's also where the curse of this movie lies. And because the movie kind of positions Fiennes and Joy in these starring roles, the film literally revolves around them. They are the only characters in this movie that at all feel actually like defined or developed. For an ensemble cast like this, I'm not really looking for like a character's journey for 12 different people, like a mini series length, and a film that is right around 100 minutes, but they are significantly more defined than their co-stars. And the film handles everyone kind of vague. Like, every character kind of has a moment that you find out why they are kind of despicable human beings, but all of those things are kind of really one note, and some of them kind of blend together. And like, if you were to ask me about a specific character, I could not tell you. And I just saw this movie last night. It's a very minor complaint, but I feel like it's worth noting in this movie because it really holds it back from being one of the year's best films. This movie kind of just throws you in right from the opening frames and really just doesn't let you breathe. And I kind of liked that. I feel like it's been a long time since I've been just kind of thrown into the action, and it made this movie a lot more impactful for me because I didn't know what was going to come next. And again, I think that comes back down to my complaint of the characters feeling underdeveloped because, again, we open up with Anya Taylor-Joy and Nicolas Hoult. But the movie more than makes up for it. It is brilliantly woven with tension, commentary on classism, and on top of that, this movie is actually surprisingly funny. And I get it, as soon as Leguizamo kind of made his first appearance on the screen, I was like, alright, there's gonna be some funny parts in there. But then I remember that he's, as of recently, has kind of, been expanding his range. And, we've seen him do amazing things like Waco. And just other really dramatic roles that he's just incredible in. But he's definitely the funny man in this movie. It's not a bad thing. I really loved Leguizamo's character in this. I thought it was really well done and really well handled. The jokes in this movie they come from everywhere, but Leguizamo is definitely the one that steals the show when it comes to the comedy of the movie. And I feel like this movie's not going to be for everyone. I feel like a part of the reason that this movie worked so well for me was how it kind of blended all of the different flavors of genres of film together. And surprisingly enough, that if you're like me, you like the occasional Food Network in the background as they're kind of showing these close-up shots of food and kind of deconstructing what the food actually is. This movie has a lot of that. I think the shots where they're using food specifically is a brilliant, just something that makes the film feel really original and really fresh. And when you kind of take that into consideration, it's actually used as elements of both comedy and tension woven throughout the film, and it's brilliantly placed. And I will also say too that this movie kind of has a little bit of everything. I would say that this is kind of a dark comedy, but I would also at the same time say that this is a horror movie. This is a psychological thriller, and this is a Food Network kind of mega show, kind of toned all together for a really unique viewing experience. And God, this movie is it's good. As the Fiennes character slowly becomes developed, this movie literally starts to transform into what I would call a modern day Falling Down. And if you guys haven't seen that movie, it's an incredible movie with Michael Douglas. It's probably one of his best movies ever, and it's massively underappreciated. Basically, in a nutshell, it's about just a guy, ordinary guy, pushed a little bit too far one day and just has a breakdown. And this movie, in some ways, feels a lot like that. There would be parts where I was like, man, this just feels like Falling Down. And then the film would change a little bit. And then it would come back down to that. And I loved how this movie kind of played and toyed with my emotions so much in just a little over 100 minutes. But let's go ahead and do our Rorschach rating scale. This one is going to go ahead and get a 4 out of 5. Like I said, I think this movie is the perfect Thanksgiving movie moving forward. It weaves multiple different genres. The cast is great. Pacing is great. The surprises in this movie are continuously again, keeping in line. Great. And yeah, so if you guys have seen the menu, what did you guys think about it? Let me know. Comment below. But let's talk about mental health. Honestly, I feel like coming out of this movie that this movie should probably be its own podcast, and this would probably be its own podcast this time next year in celebration for Thanksgiving because of how much things that this film talks about when it comes to classism and mental health, specifically for someone in the food and or culinary industry. I don't feel like I'm kind of biased in that because long before I got the job in front of you, I was a manager in the food industry for 10 years. I understand how that industry definitely messes with your mental health. And there's a point in the movie where the Fiennes character kind of gives this big traditional villainous monologue about how he's pursuing perfection, and people like the ensemble cast that is in front of him have kind of always held it out of grasp for him, but have always continuously held him to perfection. And also at the end of the day, he just feels underappreciated. And if you've ever been in the food industry, you know that feeling. There were days that I would come home from my last job and just literally feel just emotionally drained just from customers, or I would take it personally to where like I was like, oh man, this customer told me that I suck today. This must be my new identity. And honestly, at the end of the day, that messes with your mental health. It makes you really untrustworthy. I was in upper management in food, and when I went to go pursue a new managerial job and with my day job, I was really hesitant to take on higher management because of the experience that I had in food. I'm happy to say that I really enjoy my current job and that my boss is great. But I also think it's the underappreciation, all of those years of over doing stuff and in hopes to feel appreciated, that ultimately kind of come to the conclusion that it doesn't matter how good you are and how great you are, that at the end of the day you're always going to feel underappreciated in an industry like the culinary. And for those of us that have had different experiences in the culinary, man, I envy you and I'm really happy for you. But oftentimes I find that people that I talk to that come from the service world kind of have that burnt out feeling, that unappreciated feeling. And I just want to take this time to, as our platform is, just to say that you are seen and that you are heard and that you have value and that you have worth. Please do not ever let a job, a customer, a boss, or anything within your job define who you are, because what it ends up happening is it takes on a false persona, a false identity, and ultimately it breeds things like unhappiness, depression, and eventually suicide. You have value and you have worth. And I really hope that this is an encouragement to anyone watching this right now. If you or someone you know is struggling, please click the links in the descriptions below to check out our mental health resource library that discusses everything from bullying to depression to straight up suicide. The Menu is now playing everywhere in theaters. I highly recommend checking this movie out with Thanksgiving on the horizon. This will be such a great skip football. Just go see The Menu. And as always, make sure that you guys click the links in the descriptions below. Hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you guys in a couple hours to talk about She Said.